Hi everyone, welcome back to the Fishing Lakes Apiary, where we're actually going to shoot an update video on some drone brood removal. In the last video we shot of this particular colony, which is on our Patreon page, so if you want to have a look at the start of that, pop over to patreon.com/Norfolk Honey. However, we've inserted a frame with drone foundation in order to use it as a mechanical means of reducing the varroa population in this particular colony. Now, I don't think that this particular colony necessarily had a very high varroa population. In fact, with our treatment regime that we have, there aren't many that we have seen struggling with any varroa problems. But I wanted to demonstrate the technique so that should you develop that problem and you don't want to use a chemical treatment, and for me personally I'm trying to move away from chemical treatments as much as possible, so if you don't want to use a chemical treatment, this is a really good way of reducing the varroa population without having to introduce any kind of treatments. Particularly useful if your bees are on a nectar flow and you've got supers on and you're trying to take a crop of honey. So let's take the camera across, have a look at how the bees are going, see whether they've drawn that foundation, and I'll talk some more about the technique when we're at the hive. So this is our colony. We've got it strapped up currently with these very clever little straps from Thorn beehives here in the UK. They're called standard hive straps. Really clever design, and I for one use them almost exclusively with all of our colonies. It's a very simple cantilever strap that pulls everything nice and tightly together, so very easy to use once you master how they kind of flip over and go back together. So this colony was doing very well, and we selected this to put a frame of drone foundation in. Now you can buy that from most beekeeping supply companies, but you want to really use it only when absolutely necessary. I wouldn't use it throughout, because all you're going to end up with are drone cells, and the queen will lay unfertilized eggs, and as a result you'll just have a population of drones and no workers. So you want to manage that particular situation. I wouldn't use more than one frame of drone foundation at any one time. So just having a quick look down into the super just to see how much honey we've got stored. We would have added an additional super to this, but what I wanted to do was to get the outside frame, this particular frame nearest me, still needed some work on it, and also we're kind of at the end of the spring flow, so I didn't want to add an additional box. So it looks like the queen excluder's probably come up with that. So let's just ease that up again. There we are. So I didn't want to add an additional super, but when we take this particular super off, which is quite heavy, that's got a nice amount of honey in it, we will add another super and clear the bees down into that. So quick look on the underside for the queen. I check most times. Very often there's no sign of the queen, but every now and again you might spot the queen, so it's always worth having a quick look, and if she's marked then she'll stand out quite easily. So we'll carry out a general inspection as well as we've got them open. So here we have a nice little patch of worker brood, and hopefully the camera can pick up that it's slightly dark in the center. Now that means that inside those cells there are almost mature adult workers, and they will start to emerge very soon. If it were a uniform light color all the way across, then it's likely that it's only just been capped and will take some time further for those bees to emerge. On this side we've got some drone over here, some drone cells, a little bit of worker here. Looks like one or two of the cells have been damaged as I've pulled it out, but this frame generally is in poor condition, so we'll probably aim to remove this one once those bees have emerged. I don't know if you can spot it already, but there's a light coloured frame in here, and I've actually put a D on the top of the top bar, so I know that that's my frame that I'm working towards. That's the one with the drone foundation in. So looking down, I'm looking at the workers to make sure they're all healthy, which they certainly first sight appear to be healthy, and I'm then looking at the brood to make sure that the brood looks healthy. And it gets curled up into a, when it's quite young, it's curled in a C shape in the bottom of the cell, and that's always a good sign that the brood is healthy, that the larvae are developing well and that they're well fed. I think it gets described as a pearly white colour, and it is a creamy pearlescent kind of colour. So next frame, again lots of sealed brood, small patch of drone in the corners, and I generally tend to find that the drone brood gets put in these bottom corners generally. I mean, you will find it scattered around elsewhere, but more often than not it's down in the bottom corners. A rudimentary queen cup just here, so we'll just open that up and just make sure that there's nothing inside there, which there isn't, and then this frame can go back in. And for those of you that are just beginning your beekeeping journey, there's absolutely no need to rush. You can see that I'm taking my time with these, making sure that I don't trap any bees, that I don't crush any bees. I'm just working my way through nice and gently. So in this frame we've got lots of food stores. So there are some polished cells, and polished cells are usually what you will find in older comb. It becomes quite visible in older comb, and the bees clean the cells thoroughly for the queen to lay her eggs in. And when you see polished cells, that's always a good sign that potentially there's a laying queen and she's going to be along at any time to lay into those cells. And on this side, facing the camera, just move some of these bees away, you can see we've got this frame full of pollen that's ready for the bees to use. Okay, so moving on. So if you're interested in taking a look at the other videos that we produce each week, certainly through the active season, there's lots of videos going out on our Patreon channel, patreon.com/Norfolk Honey. Do take a look at it. There are some free videos on there, and what I would consider very reasonable subscription levels for beekeepers, again, of all levels of experience. So do take a look at that if you're interested. So again, another frame of brood. Let's just move these bees away, just touch the backs and you'll see they move away, and we've got lots of sealed brood. Hopefully you can see that this is a bit lighter than that very first frame that we looked at with the bees that are about to emerge. So that's looking good. On to the next frame, getting ever closer to that drone brood frame. More polished cells. Lots of pollen again, so that's good to see. Now, interestingly, I've not seen any eggs at the moment, so my mind is starting to turn towards, you know, having a queen in here that's laying eggs. I'm pretty certain when we checked them last week that they were fine. So this frame is being drawn really well. This is our drone frame. Hopefully you can see that the cells are an awful lot bigger, and in a week they've pretty much drawn that fully. So there's a little bit more work to be done, but actually at the moment those cells are looking ready for the queen to lay into. Now I have a suspicion that either we have a virgin queen, maybe a recently mated queen, a new queen, or that in fact these bees have swarmed, because there would normally have been eggs in there, and again we've got no sign of any brood or eggs in any of these frames. So this colony, judging by their temper and the fact that they're polishing all of these cells, it would imply that they have a new queen. And of course all of these cells are going to emerge and really boost the population of this colony over the next week to 14 days or so. I would imagine that the new queen, if she is in fact a new queen that's mated successfully, that's in here, will start laying any time soon because of those polished cells. So I'm not particularly worried about that situation. And again, on this frame, I haven't seen sight of the queen, so it would appear that she's probably hiding away somewhere, but certainly no eggs, no young larvae. So we'll give these another week. Hopefully the queen that's in here will start laying, and we'll have that drone foundation fully laid up, and we can then start to talk about what we're going to do with it. The important thing, if you are going to use a drone brood removal system using a frame in this manner, is that you absolutely make sure that that frame comes out when it's fully capped. You mustn't allow it to get to full term, as it were, for the drones, which is 24 days, and have any of those drones emerge, because what will happen is you're simply setting up a nursery for the varroa mite, and the population of varroa will absolutely explode. So there is one other possibility. I haven't seen, and I don't recall having seen any queen cells last time we looked through it, so I'm just going to pop this back down. And the reason I shook the bees off there was to make sure that I don't crush them when I push that frame back in. So there is a possibility that there could be a queen, and she could be in the super. We may at some point have got her trapped in the super. So we'll just have a look through the super and make sure that we haven't got the queen trapped up there. And if we do find that we've got eggs in the super, we can then try and find her and get her back down into the brood box. So let me just lift this back up. And the bees have done a very good job in storing in this box. The bees are very calm, so it is interesting. I don't think, I'd have to check what the records say, but I don't think that we've had this colony split or swarm on us. So it'll be interesting just to see what we've got in the top here. And you know, just as I suspected, we've got eggs. So let me see if I can find. So what's happened, let me just explain to you the situation. So in doing our inspections, what's happened is the queen has either become trapped in the super, has found her way through the queen excluder and got herself up into the super, or somehow she's, beekeeper mistake, maybe she was on the queen excluder on the wrong side, and we've put her back in and we didn't check last time. So the queen has actually got up into the super. Now, it's not an issue. It's really, honestly, if you're a beginner beekeeper, it's really not a problem at all. What we need to do is to try and find the queen. So I'm going to go through here very gently and see if I can spot the queen. And we'll continue to carry out an inspection. Now, if we find the queen, we can simply pop her back down into the lower box, but you can see how calm these bees are. So it was always likely that there was a queen in here somewhere, and this frame is full of young larvae and eggs. So what do you do in this situation? Well, once we've discovered where the queen is and hopefully found her and pop her back down into the brood box, we can allow all of this brood just to go full term and emerge, and then they will backfill those cells. Now, here's our queen. Now, she's quite a small queen, so it's possible that she has squeezed through, perhaps, or maybe she was on the queen excluder. As I've said previously, sometimes we make these mistakes. But now that I've found her, we can quite easily get her back down into our brood box. And it's quite simple. I'll leave that frame there. I'm going to lift this off. Now you see that the queen excluder has come away with it. So I'm just watching the queen. She's still on this frame, and she's just run across onto the back. So we pop that down, and she's just run off this frame and she's gone down into one of the frames below. So this super frame, fully loaded with eggs, some of those eggs have started to turn into young larvae. So those eggs, 21 days for workers, 24 for drones. We need to leave this now for 3 weeks, and then we can check this super again. So the best thing that we can do is to put another super onto this so that the bees have extra space and allow the queen to get back down into these very shiny cells below and start laying up again for the summer. So in fact, today is World Bee Day. It's the 20th of May, so happy World Bee Day. And we can take that measurement from now. So if we waited for 3 weeks, that's going to take us through to almost the middle of June, by which time the brood in this box should be bursting out, ready to become our summer foragers. So it's not a disaster, and don't panic if you see this situation in your hive, because it can be easily dealt with. So I'm just going to pop this back into the super and rebuild. So now we have our queen in the bottom box. We can get that queen excluder on, and despite there being quite a lot of brood in this super, actually we do have quite an amount of honey. So the honey's not going to be lost, it's just going to take a while for us to get that back out. So just a quick look through these remaining few frames, and what I'm really interested in checking for now is the site of any queen cells. And we do have some rudimentary queen cups, nothing in them, but I like to crush them back, particularly if they're in the super. Now I know that some people out there will think that this is some kind of horrendous mistake that I've made and that I should know better. But you know, beekeepers all around the world make mistakes with their beekeeping. You just have to spot it when it happens and just get on and deal with it. And if you've got a mechanism, if you've got a technique for dealing with it, then you can quite quickly put things right. So if you're not making mistakes with your beekeeping, then you're probably not doing enough beekeeping. So there we are. They're all full of honey stores, which is why this box is feeling quite heavy. If you have any questions about anything that you've seen, if you've got a problem hive that needs dealing with, then do drop me a message. You can contact me via my website. I tend not to have a great deal of time to be able to answer any comments that are made on YouTube, but if you would like me to help and offer support, then do take a look at our Patreon page, patreon.com/Norfolk Honey, and I'll be very happy to offer up any help and advice that I can. So there we are, that's our slightly different inspection, somewhat unusual in the fact that we'd managed to trap our queen in the super, but we've recovered that situation. She's now back down in the brood box and well, everyone's happy. Do continue watching. We'll be posting regular videos here, but mainly on our Patreon page, and if you have any questions, send them across, but if not, we'll catch up next time. Thanks for watching.